I'm just going to go over some ground rules real quick. I'm Baroness Katarina. I'll be your moderator for this evening for our panel discussion about the duties and responsibilities of landed barons and baronesses. I'll have our panel members introduce themselves in shortly, just right after I get done. So first of all, please go ahead and mute yourselves if you're not speaking. That will just help cut down on background noise. Second of all, while I know we may have past landeds in here, including myself, I'd like to keep the answers to the members of the panel, which are our current landeds. We're lucky enough to have them here tonight. And that's just to help us move quickly through the questions and also to respect the fact that they gave up their time to be here with us tonight. I'll allow some time at the end for us to have, other comments if we have a few minutes for that, and then we can go from there. I do have some questions that Populous members sent to me, so that's great. I'm going to give preference to those when I'm going through asking the questions. But if you guys that are on this, that are attending, have questions, I'll allow a little bit of time at the end to go through those questions as well. And I think, the last thing was, we do have a lot of questions, so we may not get through them all. If we don't, we may try to plan another one of these if their excellencies have time and are willing. So. All right, so let's go around and have you guys introduce yourselves, and I'm just going in the order that you are in on my screen, so no preferential treatment for anyone, I promise. Gavin and Wednesday, Liana, you're in the top left, so you get to go first.
Well, you kind of just introduced us, but yeah,
sorry.
Okay. So, Baroness Winsliana.
Baron Gavin.
Yeah. We are the Baron and Baroness of the Barony of Bringelod, which is Austin, Texas, basically, Central Texas.
Awesome. Thank you. Craig and Hennessy.
Hi, I'm Hennessy.
I'm Craig.
We're the Baron and Baroness of
Loxfillier, down in the Clear Lake. We range kind of from Baytown down to Freeport, Texas, and over into League City and that region.
Galveston. So we're South Houston and below. So there's another barony also in Houston. So we're the other barony in Houston. Yes, there are two baronies in Houston. People often don't remember that there's a second barony in Houston, but we are the bottom section of Houston all the way down to Galveston and along the coast.
We're the beach barony.
Lucky. Thank you, guys. Your Excellency of the Steppes.
Hi, I'm Alen of the Steppes, and I'm one half of the duo up here. My wife, Katrine, can't make it today, but she's the other part of this duo. We are in the Dallas area, and no, it's not split anyway, it's just Dallas.
Awesome, thank you. Your Excellency of Namron.
There it goes. Okay, sorry. Hi, I'm Baron Mikolai. My wife and I are Baron and Baroness of Namron, which is Norman, Oklahoma. She is here, but busy with the little one. So glad to be here.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Your Excellency of Bonwick.
Hi, I'm Eleanor Bonwick. Unfortunately, Her Excellency Alush, the other Baroness of Bonwick, couldn't make it. Bonwick covers the majority of West Texas, and our cities include Lubbock, Midland, Odessa, Big Spring, San Angelo, and Abilene. So that's a huge space, and everything in between.
Awesome, thank you. Your Excellency, Eldern Hills.
Hi, Eldern Hills. I'm Delesse, and Geshon's not here right now. And we are Lawton, Duncan, Chickasha area.
Great, thank you. I'm looking. Is that everybody? That's everybody. Okay, great. All right, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and throw out the first question, which is just to ask you, what do you consider to be the general duties and responsibilities of being a landed baron and baroness? And whoever wants to go first, just unmute and not all at once.
We'll take it.
Thank you.
So it's kind of different depending which barony you're in. I know we all kind of interact within our individual groups a little bit differently. Down here in the lock, we tend to, I don't know, kind of like guidance counselors. We have a vote on the financial committee and such, but really, you know, we don't try and trump the seneschal or anything. So we're here kind of as a representative of our group. We go out, you know, kind of, like I said, we go to all events and kingdom functions and such, and we're kind of the face of our barony.
Yeah, so we do more working on getting members to events, the actual running of events as far as, you know, themes of events and stuff like that. So a lot of what we do is liaisoning. We make sure we participate in a lot of demos and stuff, and we work hand in hand with the seneschal.
Right.
So we still look at officer reports and talk to officers and sit down with the seneschal and set goals. So we know everything that's going on in our group, but we leave the office running to the seneschal.
We're medieval consultants for the group.
Great, thank you. Did anyone else have anything to add? Eleanor?
I'd like to add that I feel that our role, mine and Alusha's, is to also, in addition to those things, be cheerleaders, to encourage people when they're succeeding or if they're not succeeding, to try to find another angle on what they're wanting to accomplish. Advocates, so outside for people outside of our group, so they can understand what amazing things people of Bonwick are doing, as well as communication enablers. Because sometimes people want to learn things from other people but are a little intimidated. So I see enabling social transactions as also part of the job.
Absolutely. Gavin and Wintiliana?
Primarily, I feel our role is hospitalers. We are the face of the barony. It's our job to put on the show, basically be the I guess the entertainers, for lack of a better word.
That's just you.
Oh,
I'm kidding. No, and it ties in with what Craig and the others said too. It's very much that liaison between the crown and the group and the public, and whether you are local or even out of kingdom, you're that face and that representing the group, as well as the mom and dad and those guidance counselors and cheerleaders. It's kind of all a package deal. The other duty that I would say that hadn't been touched on yet would definitely be, along with that cheerleading and advocating, is award recommendations and giving out the awards, because it's hard sometimes getting large numbers of award recommendations. So it's going beyond just the recommendations we receive, but then also looking at who's been doing what, and making sure people that are working not just in the front lines but even behind the scenes get recognized.
we are the top line voice of the crown.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so kind of one of the things that I would tie in, everything everybody said there is true. We're also the go-between or the voice of the crown when they can't be there locally to our group. So a lot of times that is in presenting ourselves or presenting our barony to the public. It's in that context, or as in the almost authority figure to people, which is one of the privileges too of being landed baron. But that's a big part of it, is that you are representing the crown in everything that we do.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Okay. Anybody else before I move on to the next one? No? Okay. So, what would you say is your favorite part of being Baron and Baroness of your group?
Here, I'll go first. For us, it's mostly enabling people to kind of pursue what they're passionate about to help the barony get better and to grow. And it's just kind of lending our experience and counseling and pretty much building a team to try to get the barony to be better than it was before. That is probably the best part of the job for us.
Great, thank you.
I think the best part is being able to hand out awards, being able to recognize those of your populace that are doing amazing things, and bring their actions to the forefront.
Surprising people in court is always fun.
Yes.
Just getting to see their faces and the delight and just the realization that they're actually, being recognized for the work they're doing. But yeah, just getting to see their reactions firsthand is awesome.
Absolutely.
Definitely catch them off guard.
Anybody else?
I'll kind of go along with that as well. For me, it's interacting with the new people in the SCA. And I know I think back to when I first started and I saw people with cornets and such, and I was always kind of intimidated. It's like they were on a whole other plane of existence, us peasants are over here and ooh, look at those. And I really like walking up to new people and just letting them know that, hey, come sit under our pavilion. And we hand out a lot of swords and stuff at events, and it's always fun to hand out something to somebody brand new and just to see their expression and like you lit a fire in them. And, and it's funny, years after that, people would still come up and talk to you about that. So it's really neat to kind of ignite that spark in somebody else to keep them around in the SCA.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. Anybody else? I mean, if not, that's okay.
I'll echo giving out awards is by far the coolest thing that you don't get to do other places. It's the one thing that as a landed B&B, you can't do otherwise. You can help newcomers, you can be involved in your group, and we did that beforehand. But giving out awards is something that's unique to being B&B. That is not that we can't. We won't be able to do when we step down. We weren't able to do before we stepped up.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So following that, what would you say is the hardest part of your job as landed barons and baronesses?
To me, I think it's dealing with the conflict in the group. Any of that stuff is difficult. Like people have said, sometimes you end up being the mom and dad of the group, and that can be that is difficult. I think for me at least, I don't like that part of it. It's the unfun part of it. The rewards are worth it in the end, but that is probably the hardest part, I think.
Yeah. I can definitely see that. Anybody have another thing they dislike? Okay. So kind of to piggyback off of what Mikolai just said, how do you guys handle it when you do have conflict in your groups? Maybe you have somebody that is particularly challenging to handle, or just there's a lot of strife between two households or something like that. How do you handle that?
I think the biggest object there is to try and remain unbiased. I mean, that's if people think, even get the impression that you're biased one side or the other, then for any other conflicts after that, nobody's going to really want to come to you. So it's really important to maintain that unbiased level and to listen to all sides. I mean, everybody has a version of it, and you need to at least, whether you've made your mind up and you think you've figured out what the issue is, I mean, you still at least need to give people the opportunity to express their position. So I think that's the most important thing. And it's going to be different for every single individual. I mean, every barony is different. You have everybody has their unique personalities within their barony that, that they have to work with. And it can be challenging sometimes.
And I think you handle each situation is obviously different depending on who's involved and what the actual conflict is too, because it makes a big difference whether, it's a huge major thing. It may be major to them, but we may see it as minor, or is this something that's going to blow up and, expand outside of, or even conflict within, the kingdom, and then members come to you, or conflict within a group within the kingdom or something else, and members come to you seeking counsel on things that are going on outside your barony as well. So.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you.
Definitely one of the hardest things is to try to remain neutral in these types of situations. That is difficult. And then a lot of times we find ourselves trying to cut things off before they really get started. And then that doesn't work. And you're just trying to stop things from, going the wrong direction. But you can only do so much, and you have to stay impartial throughout that entire process.
Yep, definitely. Okay.
Oh, real quick, just to tag on to that as well, because yes, I agree with everything that's been said, as well as while staying impartial, also then making the decision, even if it's the unpopular decision, what's ever best for the group, the barony, the group, and the SCA as a whole. So even though it may not be the popular choice, the popular decision, if it still has to be done, even if it's as long as it's for the good of the group. Anything that's not going to be detrimental to the barony or to the SCA and its membership. So yeah, it's hard being impartial, but also trying to do what's best in the best interest of the group.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure for sure. Anybody else? Okay, great. Awesome questions, guys. Or answers, I mean. Okay, so how would you say your job as Landis has changed right now due to the situation that we're in due to COVID?
I'll go first because that's easy. My job hasn't changed.
Not fair.
Mainly just transition from in-person cheerleading to online cheerleading. A lot of mask wearing. Our barony is a very tech-savvy barony. We currently are building Onstiora in Minecraft, which is just amazing. I don't know if y'all have logged in and looked at it, but the Minecraft server is awesome. And we're actually including that in our fall Bronial that's coming up. And so, I mean, that transition, just as we've moved from cheerleading on our group, both on ANS projects and other endeavors.
Populace in the Park is now virtual populace. And yeah, it's just that transition of what we were doing in person now to doing it virtually. Yeah. I know I've heard, especially from other groups where they're not as tech savvy, because at least this way we can still keep in touch with everybody, but other groups that are not as technologically, savvy and not as well connected, I've heard it's a lot harder of a struggle. For us, it's just been opening up the creative minds of how far virtually we can take things, which is very interesting. Right. It's another difference right now is we're not sewing right now.
I know.
We would be sewing garb for our next event at this moment.
You should be.
I know we should be anyway.
I know, me too. I'm going to be behind, but I'm like, I don't have to, so whatever. Thanks, guys. Anybody else?
Yeah, so the job is still basically the same. It's different now. It's doing things. It's cheerleading. It's representing the crown. It's all of those things. It's just figuring out how are you going to do that in the digital version. I love Zoom meetings. By the way, this is my favorite thing probably the only thing I really like about coronavirus is that Zoom meetings from the house are so much nicer for some of this kind of stuff. I'm a big fan of that with the little one. So,
yeah, it definitely makes it easier.
On that note, we are actually looking to, even when the pandemic lifts and we go back to normal, we're going to keep our populist meetings, or at least our business meetings, virtual. Yes, we'll go back to a public environment, but we're still going to record and post them online and have online interactions as well, because yes, we're a metropolitan barony, but for people who live south of the river, it can take them 45 minutes to an hour to get to the business meeting that's only 10 to 15 miles away. So being able to offer that up virtually, which we hadn't done before, is something we're moving forward with, even after all of this hopefully gets back to normal.
That's fantastic. I think that's great. And I hope that other groups will consider doing that too. Because I know we've had people in Namron that they can't get out of the house, but then they can participate in this kind of a format. So anybody else? Okay. So talk to me a little bit. You guys have talked about liking to interact with newcomers. Talk to me about how you empower your populace to be engaged and to try new things, and dealing with newcomers and getting them excited and all of that.
Yeah, jump in.
I'll jump in on this one. Our barony has always had a long-standing baronial guard. So, and it kind of went dormant a couple of B&Bs ago, and I've been looking at and bringing it back as almost a newcomers thing, to give newcomers something to do before they figure out what they want to do. We also have a wing of our entourage that is dedicated just to newcomers, so they can stand behind us and we can answer all the questions going on, like what's happening in this battle, or what is court doing, and we can point them. They're like, so what are you interested in doing? I like weaving. Well, that person over there is someone you really should go talk to. They're really big into that art form. To kind of transition them in from not having a place to actually having a purpose.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else have ideas?
At least during this pandemic time, I've tried to arrange for guest teachers for our weekly meetings every now and then, to bring a new art form or something instructable to the barony. But this predates my stepping up as Baroness.
That's still very cool, though. That's a great idea.
And I'm still seeking teachers for upcoming classes.
Nice plug there. Anybody else?
So newcomers, if you're starting on SA, it's really hard to get started. You don't really know anyone and you don't have all the right stuff. So we've been, taking steps here and there to start making it more accessible to people coming in, whether it's help with how to build T-tunics or how to make armor, or just the basic things that you need to get started in the SA. And we've been using a lot of social media, and we're starting to do videos and stuff about how people can get involved a little bit, easier, and if they are on a budget or something like that, because SA has a huge, buy-in cost. So we just want to find ways to alleviate that for newcomers.
Absolutely. No, that's great. Okay. Anybody else before I move on to another question? Okay. So I know Orlando, and I've seen this because he's so involved in the rapier community. A lot of the people that come to rapier practice, then it's hard to get them to go to an event. And then once we get them to go to a local event, we can't really get them to go to anything outside of their local group and, become an actual part of the community and on Stiora. So what do you do to encourage the members of your populace to play not only locally, but to branch out and go to other groups' events?
We do a lot. And it kind of goes back to that whole, being a B&B and leading by example, that we enjoy traveling, and we kind of make big deals about it down here. We'll make sure everybody and we're a very close-knit barony. We're one of the smaller baronies, And we make sure people understand, hey, there's always space under our pavilion. We'll have, some potluck things, and we'll make sure we'll help people set up with rides and really make it just kind of almost like a caravan of groups. And we'll travel all the way up, into the northern Oklahoma sometimes. And, we enjoy going out, being the face of our barony. We try and get as many people to come with us as we can. And a lot of it's just kind of communication, hey, what do you guys need? What would help get y'all to this event? Hey, we're providing this, or we can find you a ride, and really just talking to your groups and trying to let them see how excited we are to go visit this event, and make sure that they kind of get that same excitement going in them.
And it's not just about the excitement of going to an event. Once you've gone to an event, we do write-ups in our newsletter about events we went to this month, and we encourage people from our populace to write in our newsletter, hey, did you go to a really cool event that you had fun? Tell us about it. And we put that in our newsletter. So we not only talk about an event leading up to it and, we had so much fun here last year, or this group is so great, and sometimes we tout that, hey, they're only 4 hours away.
Which is good for on Steora, right?
But it's not just the leading up to the event, it's after the event, and getting people maybe, oh, I wish I had really gone to that. So maybe next time, they'll tag along.
No, those fantastic ideas. I really like that. You guys had a question in the chat. What does smaller barony mean? Like, how many members would you say are in your barony?
What, about 65?
Okay.
About 65, yeah.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Anybody else?
Actually,
Go ahead.
when I saw you post the list, I was brainstorming on ideas, and something popped in my head, and I don't know if it just something we did at one point or if this was something that I just came up with. But I would love to do either like a pilgrim's book or a passport of Onstiora. And you have a book, and it doesn't be thick, 6 pages front and back, 12 pages total. Have it monthly listed, and every event you go to, at gate, they stamp your book with the baronial stamp that they use on the checks. And then say at Yule every year, everybody presents their books, and whoever participated in the most events, went to the most events, would get a piece of largesse from the B&B.
That's fun.
I'm stealing that.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And honestly, if all the groups could do this, and everybody's running around with I have a Bringelod passport book, and I have a Namron passport book, and you can swap stamps when you go to each other's events, would just be an awesome thing to do.
Love it. Thank you. Celeste, did you have something?
Oh, I was just going to say, we just kind of like scoop everybody up and take them with us. We've got a really good family group that travels together. We camp together, and just like steps to make it more feasible, we bring like everything they need and make sure they get there and make sure they have everything, but then also give them something to do there, or something to look forward to there. So sometimes that means kind of linking them up with somebody who's going to kind of take them around and do things or get them excited about it. But I've really loved that we camp together, and we call it our war group, but it's just anytime we go to an event, we have a separate group for the people who want to do that, and we coordinate everything, but it kind of brings that excitement because they feel involved. They know what they're bringing, they know what part they're doing, and we make sure every event we have family dinner. One of the nights, we all get up and eat and all of that together, but one night it's family dinner. It's everybody, gets back together and eats. And then when we leave, we do that one final meal on the way home, and do like our best and worst, and we have some traditions, and we've seen like a lot more participation that way. If we kind of take away all those barriers, then we get more, not even just our newcomers, but people who might not have as much money or the time to pack up all that stuff or whatever. So we do a lot of just kind of group, we just kind of travel as a pack, as a herd.
That's awesome. I love it. Great. Thank you. All right. Anybody else before I move on? Okay. So this one is a kind of a tricky one. It's something we dealt with when we were B&B. How do you balance the establishment and maintenance of your cantons with also trying to continue growing your group and making sure that you're giving the appropriate amount of attention to all the different areas that you're overseeing.
We have no cantons, so that's easy.
Ah. I'll say what I said to Eleanor, not fair.
You should get some. So all the good baronies have one or more. So.
Ooh. Wow.
After I drop that, I'm going to follow it. It is challenging, especially if it's geographically diverse, to keep involved with the other groups. You know, we have one canton, the Scoregard is our canton. And from our house, and we're closer than most people in our group, it's 45 minutes probably to get there. Maybe, you know, less if there's no traffic, but like adding that extra on to go and be involved is difficult, and it's a challenge. And like you said, it's a balance between wanting to give those groups their own independence, but they are still, you know, part of the barony of Namron. They are a canton in the barony of Namron. They're not separate from Namron. And so it is a tricky balance. Honestly, we're still kind of figuring it out how that all works. But.
Yep. Definitely understand. Anybody else?
Well, we're kind of the odd duck out because we have no cantons, but we do have a stronghold. And basically it falls under the same category, but it's based on, it's centralized on military base. And our stronghold is Hell's Gate, and they are very autonomous. They do their own thing. We really have minimal involvement other than going to their business meetings and help out where they need stuff, but they pretty much run themselves.
They have their own, because like, yeah, I mean, of course they have their own officer corps and things like that, but because it's a stronghold and they've had time to build, they've actually built quite a bit. Now it's their 10th anniversary. Yeah. And they've done really well as far as numbers. I mean, they could be.
To give you an idea, the last time we had a populace count numbers from society, Hell's Gate had almost 60 members.
Right at 60, 70.
Yeah. Wow.
Paid members. Yeah. So I mean, they could. Yeah, it's one of those. But the way, because it's a stronghold and because it's a military base, it's why it's the stronghold versus the canton is. So if there is a large deployment, if you know, so it's Fort Hood. So I mean, if there is a large deployment, the group can go dormant and just be, you know, taken over and umbrellaed by the barony until, you know, they get back into a place where they can go again, versus a canton where you have to go through the entire process to open and close. But the biggest, and I'll, you know, of course, echo what the Baron of Nimron said too. It's supporting the groups. So I mean, you know, it's you know, Fort Hood, when most of the meetings are about an hour from north of our house. So yeah, it's taking that time. We go to their populous meetings. We, you know, we'll attend when they do tiny tourneys at least once a quarter. We'll go up and oversee the tiny tourney. So it's still being part of the group and still bringing them the news from the baronial meetings and bringing then the strongholds news to the baronial meetings and vice versa. It's being that liaison between the different groups and representing both groups.
We even gone so far as creating a award set for service and participation in the stronghold. So the baronial issued awards are non-ambiguous, but they are specifically for contributions to the stronghold.
Right. That's fantastic. Great idea. Thanks, guys. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to jump and ask. We had a few questions put in the chat, so I'm going to jump to those for a minute. One of them, because we're starting to run out of time and I want to make sure we get those answered, was what are the most notable ways that you've seen the duties of barons and baronesses changed or improved over time? That's kind of a hard one.
Craig and Hennessy, this is yours.
I'm too young for this.
Wow.
Okay.
My comment to her was, gosh, I don't know that I really paid that much attention to them back when I started out 30 years ago.
Right. That's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, well, I don't remember paying that much attention before I was landed.
But you know, that kind of goes to it that, you know, I've been in the SCA now for, gosh, 30 years. And I think kind of going back to my first impressions was I did see them as kind of, this was the hat crowd over here, and here's the non-hat, where now I see there's a lot more socializing amongst everyone. You know, for me, I see it as people aren't as intimidated to walk up and talk to somebody with the crown. In fact, we encourage people, hey, you see somebody with the crown, go ask them, what does it mean? You know, what are all the different points and correlation to William? Who are you? So I do see a lot of that everybody seems a lot more approachable now.
Yeah,
And not that-
definitely.
and not maybe they didn't mean to be non-approachable before, but I don't think as new people were ever encouraged to go
Right.
up and just introduce themselves. So they
Right.
were, I know when I started, of course, it was 25 years ago for me, so it's been a long time. A lot has changed over the time, but you know, I really feel like we all as B&B tried to make ourselves very approachable. And you know, when we have meetings, we don't wear garb to our populace meetings. We're just, everyone's on the same level playing field. So, you know, populace, as far as fighter practice goes, you know, we pretty much are on the same playing field. So people feel like they can come up and approach us and talk to us.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So as far as our barony, and I've talked to a lot of our predecessors, and what I've seen, and going back as far as we've talked to people,
Well, it was a few generations ago.
is interacting with the group more and being less of, I guess you would say, the show, the nobility, the ones that are higher up and further away that nobody interacts with because they are the nobility, versus being out there forefront. Her Excellency and I are both service-based. We came into this job as proteges. So with that in mind, and that transition from being service-minded and doing the work to being landed and still doing the work but not being seen doing the work because you know you're landed and you're not supposed to be doing the work.
And yes, I see you staring at us in the case. Sorry, I had a boss. It's on the call.
I'm laughing, but I'm muted, I promise.
Not being seen doing the work is very baronial centric. I mean, it depends on your barony because we're very out there with our barony and everyone sees us doing the work. So we're not hidden doing the work. That's like Craig said when you guys were talking about your entourage. He's like, entourage? Do we have entourage? I said, yeah, you're my entourage and I'm your entourage. Because we don't.
The biggest thing we noticed was in talking to one of our predecessors several generations ago was they were just the show. And that was it. They just showed up. They were the show, you know, and then for the event, and that was it. They had nothing. They had left all the runnings of the group completely to the officer corps. They wanted nothing to do. They didn't understand why we were going to roundtable at all. Like, why are the B&Bs going? Why are you going around that? You know, we're just the show. Why are you going to the business meeting? And that was the mentality of they were just the show, versus now I see it's that teamwork with, and we've mentioned this before, it's that teamwork with the Seneschal, working with the officer corps and being more upfront and interactive and interacting with the newcomers and being seen working.
And our cousins, the other B&Bs. The fact that we get together every red tape and have our own discussions is awesome because we bounce ideas off of each other and come up with cool things that we can take back to our groups.
Right. And that's stuff that didn't happen before. So, I mean, I'm really excited that we're actually like having, actually like B&B retreats, basically staying together and getting to socialize and spending more time together with cousins and in basically making that support between the groups. So
We did that when I was landed, so y'all stow that from us, whatever.
But yeah, it's just some of the things. I mean, things have changed.
Yeah.
Talking to some of our predecessors, I guess one of the things I learned is that we're a lot more accessible nowadays with the technology. Some of our predecessors don't take any calls after 10, but people will shoot you a message, at 2:00 in the morning, and you can just pick it up whenever in the morning or whatever. but I think it's there's a lot more access to the nobility nowadays than there was before.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Anybody else? Okay. And then another question that we had in the chat was, what actions have you taken or seen that may have made it easier to solicit award recommendations from the populace?
I would say the big thing is we remind, for one, we're constantly reminding our populace. At every populace meeting, we'll say, remember, keep an eye out. We rely on you to help be our eyes and ears. If you notice someone doing something extraordinary, please let us know, And then before an event, we start out, 2 months before an event. Hey, we have an event coming up. Think about someone who you may think deserves an award. And then, 2 weeks before, we remind them, hey, the deadline, you really need to have those award recommendations in, this week. So, make sure you put your friends in. It's not just our job to recommend someone for an award. Anyone can. Because, for a long time, when I first started in the SCA, I didn't realize that anybody could put someone in for an award. I thought, you have to be somebody to put someone in for an award. So we really try to make sure that our populace knows anybody has the ability to put anybody in for an award they think is deserving.
Absolutely. Yep.
One of the things that we've done is Julia Liliana made basically a breakdown of what awards there are and how to go about doing recommendations. And she broadcasts that fairly regularly. We'll send out an email or a note on Facebook or something. Hey, reminder, we need award recs. Here's how awards work, and that kind of frequently asked questions kind of thing helps people to know what to do. And then one of the things that we've actually looked at doing is doing similar to like a Google form for our baronial award recs, so that people could submit it that way, and to see if that will expand. We're working on that. We don't have that done yet, but that's one of the things that we're looking at doing.
Cool. Thank you. Go ahead, Eleanor.
My populace are very proficient at using Facebook Messenger, so they make group chats and invite loads of people from the barony in on the chat to discuss putting up a particular person for a particular award. And I've noticed since our populace members individually started to take that approach, we've had an enormous success in the amount of awards that actually have been awarded.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great idea.
And I would also like to have a form on our website to make it easier for our populace to let us know that they feel that someone deserves a baronial award, in case they're too afraid to talk to us, but I don't know why they would be, but just in case.
Definitely, it would be helpful. Thank you.
So, and real quick, so website definitely, and I see our web ministers on here too, so shout out to Kofina, who's awesome. As far as, getting not only the award recommendation link up on the website, but make it easy to see, as well as the link for Kingdom Awards. But something else, and it's hard, and yes, we do the reminders, and it's like, hey, remember, get us your award recs. Even with that, I've known where it's like sometimes we don't receive very many. This last year, actually, when we were having in-person meetings, I guess it was last fall, when we went to the business meeting, I literally passed out strips of paper. I handed off a sheet of paper to everyone when I walked in. I said, okay, I handed you each a piece of paper. During the meeting, write down somebody's name and something awesome that they've done. Write down an award rec, at least one. And then I collected them at the end of the meeting. I literally put the piece of paper in their hand and left there with a stack of award recs. And that, I got way more doing that than, just saying, please send us for your award recs, because they go, oh yeah, I need to do that. And when they get home, they're actually going to take the time to sit down at the computer and find the link and put people's information in, versus just while you're sitting here during the meeting and doodling, oh yeah, so-and-so did this awesome thing. And they, especially while they're hearing all the reports of what's been happening. Oh yeah, that's right, so-and-so did that. But that was just some fluke thing that I just did this last fall, and actually it worked out really well. We got a lot of recommendations that way.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, we do something similar. We started doing it at all our POP meetings is we do word fame. And so during our POP meeting, we let people, we recognize anybody that we've seen doing something good, and open it up to the populace to say, hey, these people are doing cool things. And we get ideas from that of awards to give out. But it also, I think, spurs people to do that too. Another thing that we've found is fairly helpful, I think, is to, after like a week after an event, after everybody's kind of that we put on, after everybody's kind of slowed down, is remind people again, hey, we had Protectorate last weekend. It was a lot of fun. A lot of people put hard work in. It was a great event. If you saw somebody that did something good, please, give us a recommendation, or give their majesties a recommendation, either or both. Also, everybody, CC your B&B on any award rec you send to the kingdom, because it makes it way easier on us. Little public service announcement for my cousins out there.
Definitely. Thank you. Okay. So going back to the questions that I had that were submitted. Did you ever think you would be a landed baron or baroness when you first started playing in the SCA? When Tiliana's just shaking her head no. So.
No.
Absolutely.
Well, okay, we all know where Craig's coming from.
Craig always wanted to be baroness.
That's right.
Come on. We know who wears the pants.
Right, exactly. I think most people's answer would be no. Like, I never thought that was going to happen, but then it does.
It took Eshawn over a year for me to even consider it. And that was only because one of the couples that wanted to do it had to step away because they had other goals and they couldn't do both. And we felt like the barony needed more than one choice. And we kind of looked at, were we ready to kind of up to that level of service? Were we willing to put that work in? For us, and for me, definitely it was not about this is a goal that I wanted to reach. It was a big discussion for a long time, and I had to be convinced pretty hard. It was not an easy decision, but not something I ever even wanted.
Yeah, like, whenever you're new, you don't really know what's going on. And then as we progress in the SCA, we end up knowing a lot of the landeds that were running the steps at the time. And, it's a lot of work. And it's really hard to say that you're going to dedicate yourself as much as your predecessors and do the same, things that they were doing and try to be as good as they were. It's kind of a lot of pressure. So it's not something that we approach lightly. It's not something I thought that I would do, but sometimes you do what you have to do.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, for me at least, when I joined it, there were so many things that seemed unobtainable. Becoming a baron, the peerages, crown and stuff like that. They just seemed like so regal and so above, above where I was, a little, newcomer. And that's not the case at all, because everybody who's in any of those positions was a newcomer and has moved up through it. And it like that revolution or revelation took, place over time throughout my career in the SCA, that I was like, oh yeah, these things are doable, and this is achievable for me or other people. So it wasn't ever necessarily a goal to become the landed B&B, but it wasn't even I didn't even think it was a possibility until I'd been playing in the SCA for a while. I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, maybe I could do that one day.
Yep.
Yeah, I started off in a shire, and the first 20 years of my SCA career were grad school at Texas A&M. So I really never even looked at possibility of being a baron, and then we moved down to the Clear Lake region and actually had an in-between stop in the Katy area. And Hennessy jokes about our barony kind of chose us. And when they first started talking to us about would you be interested, it kind of took a while for it to really sink in. It's like, wow, they're serious.
That's
So,
And we had no one ran against us, but that's typical for our barony. Usually I think only one set of B&Bs had someone opposing them in the history of all the landed of our barony. So
wow,
yeah.
that's
So,
cool. So they just kind of get together and decide
like,
first, and then
you.
that's right.
right. That's cool. That
We're on
works.
the beach, we're the conflict-free zone.
With
Just
some
kinda go-
margaritas and yeah.
margarita, pina colada.
Awesome. Okay. Anybody else? We had another question in the chat, and that was, what recommendations do you have to recruit people like that we need to replace ourselves? That's funny.
As we start nearing the end of what we kind of planned as our term, you really start watching people within the group that have a good experience in DSEA and understand the inner workings of it. And for me, I mean, she may have different opinion, but for me, I watch how people interact with people because again, what I'm looking for is being able to hand off our barony to someone I think kind of goes back to that conflict resolution, somebody that can be impartial and be supportive of people and, really be a true leader for the group and, keep carrying that torch forward.
It's not easy, to sit back and look at what's there, and it's not easy it's not just picking someone, but or trying to mentor someone into where you're going to be, but talking them into doing the job, and really try to get someone to shadow. I think probably it takes a year of mentoring someone to really get them to buy into, oh, I could really do this.
Yeah, it was probably a year with Kayla and Ree when they first approached us and really started including us in on a lot of what they really did. Hey, what you think we do here, come see what we actually do.
And I will say one of the best things we ever went to was they did a round table at an event where all the B&Bs sat in a round table, and they said, so you want to be B&B, come and ask a question. What is it really like? No, we don't have a clothing budget. The populace does not pay for clothing. No, we don't
travel.
have a travel. We have our own clothing budget and our own travel budget. It's not paid for out of baronial funds. So it was really enlightening to see what people thought the job was and what it really is.
Yeah, definitely. Lots of misconceptions there. Thanks. Okay, so we're almost at the end of our time, but I want to do one last question real quick. And that is, what would you tell someone who wants to run for Baron or Baroness in the future?
Do it. We haven't only done it for like a year now, but it's fun. It's a good job. But before you do, talk to people who've done it, see what is involved. See what is involved, see what's really going on, and think about if you can really make the commitment to it. But if you can, do it, go for it, and talk to whoever the B&B currently is, and figure out, that they'll be your best mentor for how your group functions. But yeah, go for it. It's a lot of fun. Go for it.
Thank you.
I think the biggest thing that I noticed since we've been B&B, and really that I wish I had more insight to beforehand, was the definition of being on. What that means to be, and the best thing I can think of is if you're in a play or in a performance, you're on stage. And as B&B, every event you go to, that you have the hat on, you're on. Even at Zoom meetings like this, we're on. This is us performing to the larger organization, and that mindset and the mental, it can be tiring. And that's something that normally you don't think of, is that, I mean, I'm an outgoing social butterfly. I get along and talk to everybody, but there's times I've come home from an event where it's been nothing but meetings all day long, And I'm tired because I've had to be on stage the entire weekend.
Yeah.
And then when we were kind of warned about that before we stepped up, I was like, oh yeah, no, I get it. Cause like almost everybody puts on the face to go out in public. And, so I thought I knew what it meant to be on. And yeah, no, it's a whole nother level.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Anybody else?
I think, yeah, you should definitely do it. I find it very fulfilling because you're trying to build something, and then you're doing it with a team, and then whenever your teammates succeed, then you have the power to either give them attention by the crown or give them attention by the barony. There's so many things that you can do as Baron and Baroness that you couldn't do otherwise. It's definitely worth it if you like where you are and you want to help it out and give yourself to make it better.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, guys. Well, we are right at 8. Does anybody in the audience have any quick questions before we let their excellencies go? I don't want to go too much over time. No? Okay. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. I know everyone on here does as well. Lots of great information and lots of great things to think about. And I will get the video posted and let everybody go and have the rest of their evenings back with their families.
Thank you for hosting.
Yeah, you're welcome. Everybody
Thanks
have
for
a good
hosting
night.
this. Thanks everyone
Thank you.
for
Thanks.
participating.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Good
Bye.
to see you.
Good to see
Good
everyone.
to see you too. Miss everybody.